Do you know how hard it's been to be a Green Lantern fan lately? Ever since that movie damaged his reputation in the public eye, we've been in the trenches. Hell, we've been 6 feet under the trenches. For the last 13 years, you'd be hard-pressed to find a Lantern anywhere outside of the comics. The Arrowverse was practically edging us with an appearance with constant teases that never went anywhere, while the DCEU somehow never managed to properly introduce one. And no, I don't count the flashback in Snyder's Justice League. That was glorified fan service. But it looks like things are finally starting to look up for us, as a Green Lantern show is on its way in James Gunn's new DCU. Creatively titled Lanterns, the series is set to follow both Hal Jordan and John Stewart. Just saying that, I have the biggest smile on my face right now. You're just gonna have to trust me on that one. But as someone who grew up memorizing the Green Lantern Oath, I am incredibly excited for this show, especially with the fact that casting is already underway and we're starting to get some rumors for who's in consideration. So I figured I'd make a video going through the shortlist and give my thoughts on who should play our DCU Green Lantern. Also, I have my own fan cast that I'm going to say at the end of the video, so you should stick around for that. Ooh, you want to stay to the end of the video so bad, ooh. But here's the thing. At a glance, the names I'm going to tell you won't make much sense. That's because this show seems to be doing something new with the characters, so let me give you some important context before we get started. The official synopsis states that this series follows new recruit John Stewart and Lantern legend Hal Jordan, two intergalactic cops drawn into a dark, Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. To go along with that, mostly reliable insider Daniel RPK told us that they want an older, gruff, no-nonsense Hal Jordan to mentor a young and reckless John Stewart. So just try and take that all into consideration when we look at each actor. They're not going for the traditional versions of Hal and John that you'd expect right away. It's been well known that the DCU is going to start jumped into the universe a little bit. Established superheroes already a thing, so it makes sense that Hal's been through it a little bit, and now introducing John, he could be this point of view character for the series, as Hal is passing his wisdom down onto him. Alright, now we can finally go put a ring on the best choice for Green Lantern. According to Nexus Point News, Josh Brolin is their top choice to play Hal Jordan, and has apparently already been offered the role. I don't even know where to start here because I have a lot of thoughts on this. If you're looking for an older, grizzled version of Hal, you really can't find someone better than Brolin. That man has spent his career playing characters who've been around the block and have seen some shit. He absolutely fits the description for this take, but at the same time, I'm not really feeling it. I feel like he's on the extreme end of that, if that makes sense. To me, he seems like way too serious of a choice. There's too much grizzle that would get in the way of how he usually acts. When I think of Hal, I think of someone akin to Maverick and Top Gun. A cocky and stubborn being of pure willpower who will stop at nothing to do what's right. Brolin doesn't give that vibe off to me at all, and I feel like we'd be missing out on the more optimistic aspects of the character. He's a fantastic actor, so I have no doubt that he turned in a great performance, but I'm not sure that performance is one that would fully do Hal justice. The only way I could see this really working is if they do Parallax straight off the bat and have Hal be the villain of the series. He'd easily be able to portray a heartless and insane villain, and it would be a bold move, but it's way too early for that in my opinion. Hal's turn barely worked because there were decades of storytelling ahead of that, so you felt the weight of seeing a good guy turn bad. So this fake scenario I just made up definitely isn't the way to go, and that's the one context I see him fitting the role. Also, he's 56 years old and the show hasn't even started filming yet. First of all, what is a 56-year-old man doing going around being called Josh? You're Joshua now. Secondly, I've waited my entire life to see Hal in live action and done right. I don't want someone attached to the role who won't be able to sustain it for years to come. I totally see where they're coming from here, and I'll keep an open mind, but right now he's probably my least favorite choice out of all the options we got. I'm really hoping that he passes on the role because I feel like there are dozens of better choices out there and it would be a mistake, but apparently he's already been offered it, so we'll see how things go soon, I hope. Oh my god, hello, it's me from the future. Am I too late? Okay, good. I've just traveled back in time to let you all know that The Hollywood Reporter just confirmed Josh Brolin has passed on the role. All my fears have been avoided, and it leaves room open for someone more fitting to take up the ring. Okay, I'm running out of time, so please, before I go, I need you all to invest in stuff. The next name on this list is Matthew McConaughey. Upon seeing that news, my first thought was, huh? Why? And my second was that I don't really like it. It felt random and that they just wanted a big name actor for the role despite him not having any characteristics I'd associate with Hal. I couldn't understand for the life of me why they'd be interested in going that route. It made no sense. And then I did one Google search and felt like the biggest idiot on the planet. Lanterns is about uncovering this big terrestrial-based mystery that ties into the larger scale story of the DCU's first chapter, and Gunn has repeatedly made it very clear that True Detective would be a big inspiration to the series. And you're never gonna guess who starred in the critically acclaimed first season of True Detective. Yeah, so after watching a ton of clips from the series and adding it to my watch list that I never get around to, I see the vision. I was incredibly uninformed at first, but now I absolutely understand why they're considering him. Also, I can't lie, he just looks like he'd be afraid of the color yellow, right? You see it. Like, take one look at this guy and tell me he wouldn't be scared looking at a nice cold glass of lemonade. I still don't love the choice, not to get ahead of myself, but I get it. McConaughey's character is a nihilistic pessimist with a litany of issues troubling him. He's clearly gone through it in life, but he doesn't show it from what I can tell. Those characteristics definitely fall in line with how they plan on portraying Hal, so I see what they're cooking up here. You may as well get the lead of the show you're inspired by, so I respect that choice. He's also a lot more believable as a cocky hero to me than Brolin would be. The issue is, though, that I only ever see Matthew McConaughey as Matthew McConaughey in all of his roles. I clearly need to watch more of his stuff, but as it stands right now, I wouldn't be able to see past the guy who says alright for Hal Jordan. It's at least an interesting choice, but it's not one I'm sold on quite yet. I will give him credit though for this McConaughey casting. It's not someone I would have ever chosen for Hal Jordan, and I think those kind of casting choices are always good ideas in my opinion. A lot of the time when these characters are being cast, they go for someone who's obvious, and I think that when you get an unconventional casting choice like McConaughey, it screams to me that they have an inspired reason as to why. Now obviously it relates to him being a true detective, but if they're looking for that tone for the series, it obviously makes sense why they go for him. The more I think about this option, the more I find myself enjoying it, and while it's still not my top choice, I think that he brings something really unique to this role that other actors wouldn't. Again, he's also 54 years old, and I get they want an older Hal, but I feel like you're shooting too old with a 50-year-old actor, unless they plan on killing him right off the bat, which I don't recommend, because again, I really want to see Hal Jordan in live action. I don't understand why you'd want such an old actor. We should be looking for someone who could realistically carry this franchise for another decade to come, and I don't think you wanted a 60-year-old man playing Green Lantern in the future. Someone I'd absolutely love to put a ring on, though, is the next option being Ewan McGregor, because he's apparently on this list if Brolin declines. He is easily my favorite choice thus far, and someone I'm completely happy with. I genuinely can't think of anything holding him back from being a good choice. Oh, okay, hold on, I actually just googled, and he's somehow 53 years old, which is gonna make me reconsider a lot of my worldview for how good he looks, so that isn't ideal, but besides that, I could easily picture him as Hal. Oh, my eyes are closed right now, and I'm picturing it so hard. Oh, you gotta try this out. He's looking good in green. This imagination thing is crazy. Ewan's range doesn't get talked about enough. From chewing scenery as the flamboyant black mask in Birds of Prey, to playing a depressed addict in Trainspotting, he can do it all. There's no doubt in my mind that he'd be able to effortlessly walk the line between a weathered mentor and cocky pilot. Take a look at how he played Obi-Wan in the innovatively titled Obi-Wan Kenobi series. He maintained the core aspects of the character we were familiar with from the prequel trilogy, but you can tell that some time had passed. He wasn't the same character, and his performance showed that. He was, say it with me now, grizzled. You didn't even say it, come on man, I thought we had something special here. If he brings that mindset into this role, I could see him absolutely nailing Hal, along with bringing all of his classic characteristics to life. It's important to have someone who can bring both the brightest day and darkest night out of the character, and I think he'd be able to do that in a more convincing way than the other two. Still, he's unfortunately older than I'd like, but if he's able to do it for the long haul, I'm more than willing to make an exception for him. So he's by far the best option we've heard. Those three options are fine and all, but I really wish there was a perfect choice for this. If only there was someone who perfectly encapsulated everything about Hal Jordan, was the right age, and had been fan-casted in the role for years, but I guess it's unfortunately too good to be true. Hold on, what's that? Chris Pine? No f***ing way. Yeah, so if you can't already tell, my answer is Chris Pine. You could not get a better choice for someone to play Hal than Pine. It's like he jumped right off the page into live action. His name's been thrown around and rumored for years, going all the way back to 2015 at the DCEU's infancy. While it was never true then, and never was even a real conversation, now is the time to do it. Better late than never, and in this case, it may actually be better now than before. Not only will he actually be in a good universe this time, but he's aged into the specific version that they're looking for. Pine is 44 years old now, meaning that he's got the experience and look required for a version of Hal who's been doing this for well over a decade. Most importantly though, this guy is a charisma machine. It's actually crazy how likable he is in the most casual ways possible. There's a reason people have wanted to see this casting happen for years. He is the exact personality type you'd expect for Hal. I know I just said this whole speech earlier about how I like unconventional casting choices because it means that you have an inspired vision, but like, come on, it's Chris Pine as Hal Jordan. It's a perfect casting choice and you can't miss an opportunity like that. When it works that well, you have to jump on it. And I know Steve Trevor is an obvious comparison considering this would be the second DC pilot he's played. I think you can make an exception here because it just fits it so well. Also, I honestly think that his role in the Dungeons & Dragons movie is a good comparison point here for his performance as Hal. He's charming, confident, and brash, often ignoring others in favor of doing what he feels is the best thing to do. With a past full of failures, he's guilt-ridden and doing his best to make things right. I feel like that's a great blueprint for how they want Hal to act. Personality-wise, he's absolutely the best choice, but I also think it's really cool that Chris, like Hal in the comics, is also Jewish. It's a small detail, but I always appreciate when casting's accurate like that. Jewish superheroes are severely underrepresented and miscast most of the time, so it's nice when they get that right. Listen, this is Chris Pine we're talking about. I'd be shocked if there was anyone who had a problem with this casting. It would have been great then, but it could be even better nowadays. Out of all the available options, he's by far the best of them, and it isn't even close. I am praying that Brolin declines the role so it ends up in Chris's hands. All that being said, I did promise I'd give my fan cast, and I'm a man of my word. If it were up to me, I'd love to put a ring on Alden Ehrenreich. Despite numerous great performances, he still doesn't get the credit he deserves as an actor. Oppenheimer has finally started opening people's eyes up to how good he is, and I think a leading role as Hal Jordan would be a great way to show how immensely talented he is. Now, obviously, this doesn't fit the whole old and grizzled vibe they're going for, since Alden is only 34 years old, and in Hollywood that's practically a baby. He's at the ripe age of appearing as a high schooler in a Spider-Man movie. But in a perfect world, I'd much rather prefer to see these formative years of Hal's life with a younger actor in the role. Don't get me wrong, I do like the idea of him starting out as a veteran. Too often in comic book movies we have to start at the beginning and it stalls the development of these universes. Look at how the Batman handled things and you see a character 2 years into the career. We skip the origin and get to the good stuff. And I think doing something like that would be great with Green Lantern. Alden could play a version where it's not his first year, but he's definitely been doing it for a little bit. It's just not someone who's been traumatized after doing this for over a decade. On the other hand though, beginning with a seasoned Hal would be a great way to world build and jump deep into this universe full of lanterns with the core already in full force, not waiting to be assembled. But I would still rather see Hal played by a younger actor who can carry a franchise for the next 20 years if need be. Alden is perfectly capable of delivering on that idea and would bring Hal to life in the way I've always wanted. I'm sure most of us got our first taste of him as Han Solo, and I feel like those characters would have a lot in common. The hot-headed and exaggerated swagger of a space pilot is exactly the kind of energy I want my Hal to have. I also discovered in research that he's a Jewish actor, which really solidified how perfect of a choice he'd be to me. I doubt I'm the first person to think he'd be a good fit for Green Lantern, and that'd be for a good reason. It's like he was born to play this role, and while it doesn't seem like the DCU will make my dreams come true, I still needed to get that casting out there. Hopefully some way or another it happens one day, because it was meant to be. Also, I wish we had more Jon Stewart news to talk about. No, not the talk show host. Why would I be talking about him? We're talking about the Green Lantern, and unfortunately it seems like there's nothing officially rumored for him yet. I've seen the names Damson Idris and Aaron Pierre floating around because Tom King has started following them on Instagram, but I feel like that's kind of a stretch. Just because he's writing the show and follow them isn't an indication that they're under consideration for casting. But for the sake of fun, let's roll with those two options, and I'm gonna be honest with you, just because I like you, I haven't seen either of these two in anything. And I don't have the time to watch a bunch of shows and movies for this video, okay? I'll try and familiarize myself for them in the future, but right now I got nothing. Based on looks alone, I'm leaning more towards Idris since he's dark-skinned like John is, and that's important to get right. Way too often in these movies, they refuse to cast dark-skinned actors to play the character, so I hope that they do it for John. But I do have a few names of my own that I'd love to see, so if you are James Gunn and you're watching this video, here's a few people I think would do a great job. Trevante Rhodes is probably my top choice for John. I cannot take credit for this one since I saw it a few years ago, but I've loved it ever since. His performance in Moonlight was breathtaking, and I think he'd be able to bring a lot of weight to this character. No matter if you're looking for a more reckless or reserved John, I have no doubts that he'd be able to portray those aspects of him. I also think John Boyega would look great in green. After how he was burned by Star Wars, I'd love for him to find a franchise that would give him a great role that he could really get into if he'd like. For this specific version of John as well, who's always in over his head, I think he'd be a perfect choice and bring a ton of energy into the role. The last person I suggest is Lakeith Stanfield, and this may be one of my own personal bias because he's one of my favorite actors and I think he'd be a great fit for so many roles, but his talent is insane and he'd easily be able to pull off a young and reckless John. I know he may seem a little too laid back for the role on the surface, but go watch Short Term 12 and you'll see exactly what he can offer. I absolutely see the potential in him and I think it'd be a mistake to not at least consider him for it. Truthfully, it's very hard for me to think of young actors to play John because thanks to the Justice League cartoon, I always think of him as an older man, but I hope I got some good picks out there. If not, feel free to yell at me on the comments all you'd like. Regardless of who they cast to play the Emerald Enforcer, I'm just beyond happy to finally have a Green Lantern project in development that's actually gonna happen. Since 2011's Disaster Piece, so many Green Lantern-focused projects have been in development hell, being tortured for that movie's sins. There was a movie announced in 2017 that never went anywhere and then just quietly disappeared one day, before a series was announced in 2019. That show was different than the one we're gonna be getting now, and it also went nowhere, so I'm just happy to see some movement nowadays. We've gone gotten to the point where this project is so real that there's casting, and that has me so excited. I know I say this phrase in probably every video, but Green Lantern is a character filled with untapped potential in live action. With such a dynamic and fun power set, you could do so much with him to the point where we've barely scratched the surface. This new DCU is an opportunity to finally do the core right and show just how it's supposed to be done. I already love the idea of turning it into a procedural detective show, so they're off to a great start in my eyes. As long as they deliver on the casting, I have faith that they'll do my guys right. If there's one thing to take away from this video, I'm just begging that they get Chris Pine for the role, because God, he's so perfect for it, and I can't get over how well he fits into the archetype for Hal. I know you're watching, James Gunn, please, just give it to Chris Pine and my life is yours. There's nothing I need more than Chris Pine as Green Lantern. Okay, I need to go and travel back in time to complete the loop from earlier on in the video, so I'm going to go ahead and end things there. Thank you all for watching. Who would you like to see play Hal and John? Whether it be from the rumored choices or your own fan cast, I'd love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And if you enjoyed what I had to say, feel free to give the video a like and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you want to see another video like this, you can click right over here. If you don't do it, they're going to animate the suit again, and that would be my 13th reason. I cannot go through it again, so just please subscribe already.